Hello, everyone. I hope that you are doing okay today. I wanted to talk about the um, economic situation that is um, coming for South Africa, and that it's already at a devastating um, place right now. But mainly what I wanted to do is speak out to ask the South African people, are you prepared, in case of worst case scenario for an economic collapse? Because if Eskom completely goes down, this is what's going to happen. And I know everyone is well aware of what's happening in Venezuela. That's what happens when there is a full economic collapse. So I found some interesting information. It's actually a book, and it has some pretty useful information in it. So the guy that wrote this, he lists the evidence of impending collapse of the South African economy. And he starts out with structural economic damage, and recent reports indicate that, well, this isn't so recent. It's not from this year. It's from a few years ago. But at that time, there were 300 jobs lost in the manufacturing sector. The job losses are blamed on the internal economy, and some may be caused by this, but most are caused by what the ANC is doing to the economy. The mining sector is in decline, and recent reports suggest that virtually all gold mines will close within 5 years if the present trends continue. Mind you, I think this was a few years ago. Loss of knowledge and experience in the workforce. So accelerating loss of knowledge and experience as educated people, primarily people of European descent, but also Indians, coloreds, and even African people with education are leaving South Africa, and I don't blame them. Many of these people have been driven out by harsh affirmative action. Others have seen the writing on the wall, and they're getting out while they can. Estimates are 1 to 3 million have left. One report says there are a million South Africans in Australia alone. So I'm just really concerned about, this Eskom, all of these things going on, because the implications of this are, the ramifications of this happening are very scary. They're scary for me, and I don't live there. I lose sleep over this. And people need to be prepared, or they need to try to prepare as best they can. And it's just a shame, and the media says nothing, as usual. So it goes on to say, number 3 is the obsession with apartheid. Despite the fact that it's been dead for almost 25 years. It's continued, the ANC continues to bombard and Africans generally with stuff about apartheid this, apartheid that. Yet Japan and Germany made substantial recoveries within 20 years after being obliterated during World War II. So the ANC just continues to blame everything on apartheid, which, look, everyone who was party to that is dead and buried and gone. Those people are no longer living today. How can you keep this going for 25 years, blaming people who were not even born when this was still in place? What people need to understand is that there is no solution. There is no solution because they seek no solution. There's no reasoning with the people that are brainwashed by this government and told to kill all white people by their own government officials. So they're incited to kill by one party, and then the other ruling party fails to act on the murders when it becomes a desperate situation. So for all the people that think that a government can't go tyrannical, you're wrong. That's what these people are experiencing right now. A government gone tyrannical against its own citizens. So, it goes on to talk about Hiroshima. They're not whining about what the Allies did to them, which is us. Yeah, there were things wrong that the world sees wrong about apartheid. And maybe everything wasn't right. But with all of this happening, I'm sorry, but I personally see a need to live apart or people have their own protection for their own people. If it's the only solution to stop what's happening, I'm sorry, but I mean, obviously what they have put into place is not working. It was working before the ANC took over. South Africa was a first world country. They had a top military, sports teams, education, and not only for whites, but for blacks too. They were able to get great educations. I read a while back a report that 60% of black South Africans say that the quality of life was better under apartheid rule. I think it was in an article I wrote. I'm sorry, I think it was 60. And I mean, it's reported as evil and, horrible and all of these things, but the truth is always somewhere in the middle of what is mainstream, right? And I believe there were reasons for it. Yes, there were bad things that happened. Yes, there were things that were not good. But there were also things that worked. So there has to be some middle ground somewhere. I mean, you went from a first world country to now you're on the brink of a total civil war, economic collapse. The government that's been in power for 25 years does not understand simple economics and math, things that you learn in middle school. A country so rich in natural resources, yet America sends $500 million in aid there every year because they are unable to compute that into economic success for their people. And it's because of greed. They line their own pockets instead of worrying about the good of the South African people, all the people. So this goes on to say the reason there are so many European males in business and industry is because the Europeans conceptualized and built those businesses and industries from scratch. That's not discrimination. It's not apartheid. It's a reflection of the fact that Africans didn't do it themselves, and that people who were capable of doing it did it. I mean, that's a fact. There's nothing wrong with facts. Facts are not racist. They are just facts. So, when the Europeans came to South Africa, there was nothing except sparsely populated land. They built houses, farms, roads, mines, towns, etc. from scratch, using the knowledge and experience and intellect and the ingenuity, discipline, and commercial news that they brought with them. The Africans could have copied them at any point. They did not. And they still have not, other than to do what they can to steal land and anything that they can. Not only did they not copy them, they now see it as that it makes sense to tear down everything that these whites built and start over. So they've destroyed a first world country. They seek to tear down everything that was built, yet they're building nothing back. So it goes on to say inappropriate usage of funds and tender fraud. And I know this well because I've studied this tender fraud and inappropriate uses of funds in depth. So fraud, tender fraud, outright theft, gross extravagance and wastage, inappropriate expenditure, sapping the economy, and have created an artificial boom as money that should have gone into infrastructure, maintenance, employment for the poor, homes, employment for numerous other fundamental structural elements. Instead, the funds have been channeled into consumption, expenditure of the worst kind, on imported luxury cars and all sort of extravagances. Maseratis, Lamborghinis, Ferraris were reported at the recent ANC conference. So it's only a matter of time before the bubble implodes, and when it does, it will implode dramatically. So I'm looking at a document that's from 2012. So we're at this implosion right now. So inappropriate legislation and policies. This speaks a little about completely feudal controls, which generate significant wasteful overhead in the banking sector, the regulation of interception of communications and provision of Communication-Related Information Act, which introduces similar feudal controls and administrative overhead in cellular communication. Legislation such as minimum wages, they hamper the South African economy. They totally ignore the high levels of unemployment that are instituted and enforced by the ANC. Allied trade unions encourage workers to demand more and more unreasonable remuneration, leading to job losses and businesses becoming uncompetitive and closing down. So breakdown of the criminal justice system. There are constant reports of corrupt, incompetent police, horrendous murders of farmers. Zuma actually used to openly call for these murders. He had a song that he sang. And this was the president of their country. It's just insane. And I won't go over the whole thing. want people to take it seriously because, I mean, this is something that I fear is coming. And people need to be prepared. I mean, as much as they can, or get out if you can, for your children. For your children, for them to have a future. They deserve a future where they can be who they are and be proud of their heritage, their culture, and be able to grow and have jobs and not be subjected to this terror. If you can get out and you do not, and you have children, your children are going to be damaged from this forever. If you're able to get out, you need to do it for your children. I understand that some will never leave, and I understand why, because this would be my family. But as a mother, it would be my responsibility to do what was best for my children's future. And every white South African knows there's no future there for their children. And I mean, I don't know what's to come in the future, but I would want my children out. So something that's not really talked about a lot is that Genocide Watch, they reported, I think the last report, I don't remember what year, it's been a while. They reported that it was at, genocide was at a level 6, I believe, in, I'm trying to find the date. It's been a while. There hasn't been a report since then. I believe it was 2012, maybe. You can correct me if I'm wrong or look it up. So that was how many years ago? 8 years ago. So if they reported it today, I wonder what it would be. So if ESCOM does go down in this economic collapse, which I feel the ball is already rolling, and it has already been, it's already started. It's going to become like Venezuela, only worse because of all the hate and the brainwash that's there. And do you think the government is going to suffer for this? No. They have homes in other countries. They will be gone so fast, they will never suffer any of the consequences of this 25-year reign of terror that they have brought down upon all of the people of South Africa. Not only the farmers and the Afrikaner, the English, the white minority, that, by the way, only makes up about 8% of this country. A tiny minority. Were these people to come under attack, the numbers are like 4.5 million whites against, 40 to 45 million. Those odds are staggering, and that doesn't include the surrounding areas that would come to support this corrupt government regime. So added with those numbers, it'd probably be 70 to 80 million against 4.5 million. Let that sink in. Imagine living in a home with your children, and that's what you fear every day. It's coming under a full attack because they threaten it often. And people feel that they are very close to the edge, that they are on a knife's edge. And it's just so much going on in the world right now. I feel the world has completely turned upside down. I feel like I'm living in the twilight zone. I'm hoping to wake up soon, where everything is backwards, everything is upside down. It has become almost criminal to be a conservative, to not believe in killing babies, to believe in traditional values, to want to be left alone to live your life as you choose, to raise your children as you choose with traditional values. Under Obama, it wasn't enough anymore to say, I don't care what you do, I'm not judging you. If it wasn't celebrated, all of their bullshit that was shoved down our throats for 8 years, they tried to destroy our lives, and that is wrong. People ought to be free to live how they want to live. If you want to wear a dress and use the ladies' restroom, I really don't give a crap. Shouldn't be a government issue, and I shouldn't be, attacked or my life, destroyed because I say, hey, I'm not going to do it. I don't agree with it, but, do whatever you want. I just want to be left alone. And the world has been turned so upside down that I'm having a hard time understanding when the hell did it come so controversial to be a conservative, to believe in very simple values, basic human rights for everyone, not just for people that are not white. And when did everything go so wrong? I don't know. I just feel like this is becoming worse and worse. People have to stand up, draw a line in the sand and say, okay, enough is enough. We're not willing to take this shit anymore. You have lost your mind. I was watching the news last night, and we have people running for president, liberal Democrats in our country, that are calling for the Electoral College to be done away with. This is the most insane thing I have ever heard in my life, because this would mean California and New York decide who the president is. That seems fair, right? No. So, it's just an example of what's happening all over the world. And now, America, we have people that are openly calling themselves socialists running for president of the United States. This would not have been acceptable. So what are we doing? We have to stand up, and we have to stand up for what's right. And that starts right now with what's happening in South Africa to these people. We have to make a statement by saying we're not going to allow this, and we're not going to take it anymore. And I urge all conservatives like me, if you're white especially, if you do not do this, if you do not take a stand now for what's right, draw a line in the sand, and stand up, grow a pair, and be strong enough to stand up to it. It's coming. It's coming for your children and your grandchildren. And I wish more people would stand up and put their foot down, because they can't silence all of us. And it needs to be done. So I will end this with saying that South Africa, I know many people that are praying for you and fighting for you very hard. And I know that you know that. Please prepare yourselves for the worst, just in case. This is the type of person I am. I always prepare for the worst, and I hope for the best. So in this situation, you should look at it like that and take your head out of the sand if you are one of the people who think it's not that bad. Take your head out of the sand, take an active role in helping your people come together and find common ground and work together and fight, okay? You have to do this because this is your weakness, not being able to come together, and this is what they use against you. They know. So I urge you to take your heads out of the sand, come together, and prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Americans, please stand up. Stand up for what's right. It starts with us because we are the last watchdog in the world that truly cares for people. They are American patriots, like myself and you. And we must not forget that we have a responsibility to humanity to speak out when we see things like this happening. And if you ignore this, you're doing a great disservice to yourself, your own country, and to these people who need our help. So, thank you again, everyone, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you soon.